77. Change. This is the Berlin Wall, Ryan said, as he stood between his troops and a blast door, the last frontier between Western civilization and complete annihilation. He glanced at his minions, all ready to die for their country, and because they had little choice. Saren kept her arms crossed, carrying herself with dignity in this dark hour. Darkling lurked in a corner, still sore about its nickname. Alchemo grunted, eager to see the mission done. The rest of the cannon fodder, Gemini, the reptilian, and Ink Machine waited anxiously, knowing that as red shirts, their odds of survival were slim. The Land, Mosquito, and a few others remained above ground to protect the junkyard. Rakshasa had the critical task of appeasing their ever-numerous rabbit overlords, before their numbers reached critical mass, a doomed task, unfortunately. As for Incognito, Ryan had sent him to Dynamis, to lay the groundwork for the run's final operation. The last member of the crack team soon showed up, holding a black briefcase. "It's here, Mr. President," Frank declared, as he presented the holy item to his dark master. The nuclear football. It came with the mail. Ryan held his breath, as he touched the soft leather with anticipation. He had been careful to order it through a complex route, so the sender wouldn't learn her client's identity, but his efforts had paid off. At long last, the courier's diabolical plan had reached fruition. "What's that, boss?" Saren asked, a bit confused. "A secret weapon?" "The only one that matters." Ryan stopped time, and when it resumed, his clothes had fallen on the floor except for the boxers. His display of manliness was welcomed with surprise and shock. "Oh my," Ink Machine said, a bit surprised. "Not again, you exhibitionist," Alchemo complained. "If you lead us to battle naked, I'm taking the door." Saren said, as she glanced at Ryan's boxers. "I've seen bigger weapons of mass destruction." The president ignored the masses, as he slowly opened the briefcase and gazed upon the dark power within. Wardrobe's presidential costume. Unlike his previous clothes, it was pure black and red. This time, there would be no more playing around. This suit was unlike anything Ryan's foes had faced before, unrelenting, merciless, uncompromising. Ryan slowly and silently put it on before his troops, to establish his stylish dominance over them. The dark pants first, because it was cold in the bunker. They fit his body curves perfectly, and oozed villainous sex appeal. Then he put on the black leather boots, to stomp protesters' faces. With skull-themed socks. A cashmere red shirt and black suit, Karl Lagerfeld style. Because when you embraced the dark side, you dressed German. A strong and powerful necktie, to represent his authoritarian, unflinching leadership. Velvet gloves, to choke his minions when they talked back. A black jacket, that would flow with the wind when he looked threatening atop rooftops. A red and silver mask covered most of his head, except for the eyes, so that his evil gaze may terrify children. And finally, a savage bowler hat, to show he meant business. No light. No hope. Only one word. "Perfect," Ryan said, deepening his voice to sound more intimidating. His men remained too intimidated to say anything, except for the idiot of the group. "I don't find it anything special," the reptilian said. "And I think it's a bit too EDG." In response, Ryan choked him with one hand. It had taken him years to master this move, but the sudden lack of air and blood brought the reptilian to his knees. The mook attempted to grab the president's arm with his hands, but the lawful authority only strengthened his grip around his victim's throat. "I find your lack of taste disturbing," Ryan said, his tone promising only death. I'm sorry," the reptilian managed to sputter, his reptilian face turning purple. "I'm sorry who, handbag?" "I'm sorry, Mr. President." Ryan released the protester, and let him gasp for breath. He glanced at the other psychos, who all straightened up. Frank carefully grabbed the president's old clothes and put them in the briefcase. "All right then, mooks, listen up," Ryan addressed his troops, as he put his trusty coil gun around his belt, and the fisty brothers on top of his velvet gloves. "Our goal is to reach the base's mainframe thanks to a shortcut, and allow our brain-dead friend to hook up with it." "I'm not." "Are you questioning my authority?" Ryan asked Alchemo. "Because I respect freedom of speech." The genius glanced at the reptilian, who had barely recovered from the choking. 2 years, Alchemo said, and it's still the same nonsense. "I love democracy." Ryan promptly continued with his explanations. "Your job is to make sure he reaches his destination. Frank and Darkling will force a path forward, and will follow suit." The steel giant immediately made a salute, having put the briefcase aside. "Yes, Mr. President." No answer from his backup though. "Darkling? Darkling?" Ryan glanced at his favorite ball of black.
Go.
"Darkling, are you giving me the silent treatment?" "My name not Darkling," the slime answered unconvincingly, its countless eyes looking away. "Then what is it?" the president asked smugly. "Not Darkling." "All right, not Darkling it was. Now, before we go in, I would deliver a speech, but let's be honest, a psycho's life is nasty, brutish, and short." Ryan put his hands on his waist, Darth Vader style. "Our fists and guns will do the talking instead." Though Ryan would be lying if he didn't feel a little anxious about this operation. Many of the circumstances that made it possible wouldn't repeat, from Psyshock going to the past, Saren acting as a guard, or Darkling using Ghoul as a vessel at the right time. Nor could the courier expect the plushie to play along and stick to a script. For the first time since Ryan had started looping, this run would be a one-shot. Unrepeatable. While he had memorized the shortcut itinerary suggested by Nora, Ryan expected to face heavy resistance. Big Fat Adam had lost most of his men reaching the mainframe, after all, which meant that the things on the other side could kill genomes. One laser to the head, a single fluke, and this run would end abruptly. But Ryan hadn't gotten this far without taking risks, and Len needed it. Now, the president stepped aside and raised his coil gun. "Saren, be a dear and use your vibrator." "One day, I'll show you a vibrator." His second-in-command raised her hands, and blasted the steel door away with a mighty shockwave. She was immediately welcomed with a hail of laser fire. Ryan hastily froze time, grabbed Saren, and pushed her out of the way before a stray ray could hit her. On the other side of the broken door, the courier glimpsed a squadron of cyclopean androids, each firing rays from their single eye. They had assembled in tight, defensive positions along a large steel hallway. "Texas smash!" Frank immediately shouted as time resumed, before bull-rushing the robot squadron. The giant crushed anything in his path, his body absorbing the machine's metal parts on contact. Darkling immediately slithered after him, and the group followed. Ryan and Alchemo remained at their formation center, with the psychos forming an escort around the two of them. All hell broke loose. Ryan barely took a step before he had to dodge a bullet, as the walls opened to reveal twin miniguns on each side. A volley hit Ink Machine by surprise, but her liquid body caused the projectiles to pass through her harmlessly. Before they could hit the rest of the group, Ryan froze time and shot both weapons with his coil gun. Thankfully, the projectiles were powerful enough to perforate the turrets, blowing large holes inside them. His minions, thankfully, didn't stay idle. Saren assisted Frank by blasting away robots with shockwaves, with the reptilian tackling any tin can approaching her too closely. Ink Machine leaped around the room and used her liquid form to seep inside a robot and take it over, using it as a metal shield to protect Alchemo. The strangest member of the meta gang, Gemini, also pulled her weight. While appearing like an ethereal woman of shining light at first glance, Ryan had realized the truth upon closer examination. Her tentacled shadow was the real her, and the shining woman a mere illusion. And that shadow could kill. When it hit the robots' shadows, their bodies suffered the same damage. However, the corridor's lights suddenly increased in luminosity. 2 robots moved their pitch-black shadows in such a way that they seemed to grab Gemini's. They figured it out, Ryan thought, astonished, as the robots' shadows restrained Gemini's own. It had only taken the machines a few minutes to guess the nature of her power and figure out a counter. They had also realized that Frank could absorb metal on touch, and switched from trying to dogpile him to laser volleys. These things could learn. Worst of all, the way they moved, avoiding friendly fire, and coordinating almost perfectly, they weren't individual units, but a hive mind's pieces. And within minutes, that same intelligence had identified Alchemo as a key target, perhaps because Ryan and the others focused on protecting the genius. Darkling, shield the medic! Ryan shouted while pointing at Alchemo, the Shoggoth immediately switching from attacking robots to protecting the genius. The ooze swirled around Alchemo like a barrier without touching him, stopping any laser from coming his way. Instantly afterward though, the machines switched targets. This time, they focused on Ryan. 5 robots unleashed a volley of lasers in his direction, and a 6th attempted to tackle him. What, you couldn't identify me as the leader until I opened my mouth? Ryan taunted them while he activated his power. He leaped out of the laser's way in the frozen time, before smashing the 6th robot's chest in with Fisty. Haven't you looked at my costume? A laser made a hole in his bowler hat the moment time resumed, infuriating him. Ryan angrily retaliated by shooting down the machines holding Gemini with his coil gun, freeing the psycho. Her shadow quickly tore the remaining robots apart. Having slaughtered the opposition, Frank resumed his rampage and smashed through the next door. The new room beyond the hallway took the shape of a large dome, with the ceiling layered with holographic projections representing the solar system. Ryan noticed a red point in orbit around the Earth, far beyond the moon. However, he didn't have time to look at the beautiful spectacle, as small holes opened all over the dome. Eye-shaped drones flew through, and opened fire at the group with submachine guns. Darkling immediately reshaped itself into a slimy barrier, shielding the entire group from the initial volley. The holograms above their heads brightened, the illusory sun turning supernova and unleashing a blinding light. Blast doors on the walls opened and more Cyclopean androids walked through, an unrelenting tide of steel. While Darkling formed a wall to protect Alchemo, Frank rampaged through the ground-bound machines, his metal body shrugging off lasers easily enough. Unfortunately, his lack of range prevented him from hitting the floating eyes, leaving the task to Saren and Ryan. The courier eventually resorted to stopping time, both to push his second-in-command out of a bullet's path and to hit the damn flyers. Unfortunately, the rest of the group didn't fare any better. Cyclopean robots were trying the same shadow grab tactic their predecessors used on Gemini, except this time with greater numbers. 8 robots grabbed the Psycho's shadow from all sides, and then started dismembering her. Gemini's light body flickered out and collapsed in a bright flash. 5 other Cyclopean machines had cornered Ink Machine, and incinerated her with sustained laser beams. The liquid Psycho dissipated into colored steam, her body unable to stand the heat. Even the reptilian had only avoided death so far by staying near Darkling. That spot. Ryan pointed at his left once he had a brief respite, near a junction between the dome's wall and the floor. The structural weakness should be here, Chernobyl. Stop calling me that. Saren complained, but obeyed all the same. Her gauntlets vibrated, and she started targeting the spot with shockwaves. Cracks slowly began to appear on the floor, the metal foundations floundering under the strain. Of course, the machines instantly attempted to stop Saren, but Darkling formed a defensive wall around her, Alchemo, Ryan, and the reptilian. Only Frank was left out, but he clearly didn't need help. Eventually, Hazmat Girl blew a wide hole in the floor. The path to the mainframe. Ryan, now in full general mode, barked orders. Reptilian, with us, he ordered, while Saren leaped into the hole. Frank, Darkling, cover our rear. I am not equipped for Clim, Alchemo started complaining, only for the reptilian and Ryan to grab him like a potato sack before jumping into the void. Frank and Darkling moved to cover the hole behind them, snatching any drone attempting to follow through. The two titans remained there, brave Spartiates holding off the whole Persian army. The courier and his allies landed in a strange, ghastly gallery of vats and glass containers. Each of them contained half-formed humanoid bodies, some with their organs floating in colored liquid. While they had human features, the creatures' limbs were unnaturally long, and part of their faces had been replaced with machinery. A genome research lab. Pipes on the walls filled the vats with what Ryan guessed to be elixirs. The reptilian, in particular, could barely restrain himself from drinking their contents. "Where are we going next?" Saren asked, pointing at two blast doors. "Left or right?" "Neither." Ryan instead glanced at a key point in the gallery's right steel wall, right behind a green vat. If they collapsed it, they would gain direct access to the mainframe's room. Saren moved in front of a steel panel, and released colored gas from her fingers. The wall rusted at an accelerated rate while Ryan raised his eyes at the hole above his head. Thankfully, Darkling had wisely sealed the hole with its body, preventing drones from slipping through. "Mr. President!" the reptilian shouted, his hands on the ground. Apparently, his enhanced senses allowed him to notice slight vibrations. "I sense something coming from the left." A robot, bigger than the rest. Oh well, it couldn't be a dungeon raid without a boss at the end. "Brain dead, behind me," Ryan said, pushing the genius closer to Saren. "Reptilian, hold the line. It's time to die for your country." "I would rather avoid that, Mr. President," the reptile complained. Ryan raised his hand to mimic a choking motion, and the mook rediscovered his patriotism. The left blast door opened a few seconds later, and a 3 meters tall machine walked through. The creature looked like a vat on 6 steely spider legs, with 2 mechanical hands at the front. Crimson liquid swirled inside the vat. As an energy bolt raced through the substance, Ryan could see a tiny crimson spot at the center, a speck-sized portal leading to a realm of overwhelming power. The reptilian immediately rushed at the robot, but never reached his target. The machine pointed a hand at the psycho, and a crimson glow lifted him above the ground. That machine was a telekinetic genome. A true telekinetic, capable of applying force to anything with red flux energy without restriction. The machine sent the reptilian flying at the ceiling with such force, it flattened the psycho. The scene reminded Ryan of a mosquito being crushed by a fly swatter, the mangled body falling on the ground when the killer bot stopped applying force. And now, the thing had turned its attention towards Ryan, raising a steel hand in his direction. The courier froze time the moment he sensed pressure in the air, immediately moving away from his current position and firing a shot. The coil gun's projectile bounced off the strange glass protecting the red substance, much to the time traveler's annoyance. "Tell me, robot, can you touch yourself with that power?" Ryan taunted the machine, which answered by trying to slam him against a wall. Only the courier's use of time stop and enhanced timing allowed him to avoid the reptilian's fate. "I hope those hands aren't just for show." The machine answered by telekinetically ripping out steel panels from the walls, and throwing them at Ryan. It was no fun to banter with a mindless machine. The courier might as well be speaking to a wall, so he focused on avoiding the projectiles and closing the gap. Stopping time at the right moment, Ryan punched the machine's left arm at the joints, snapping it in half with fisty. he hoped it would disrupt its telekinesis. The courier couldn't afford smashing the glass container in close combat, or he might risk being drenched in elixir. The arm fell off when time resumed, but the robot instantly retaliated by trying to impale the courier with its spider legs. Thankfully, Wardrobe's costume had been fashioned for war, and didn't rupture from the courier's acrobatics. Thanks to Ryan's diversion, Saren had melted a tunnel and escaped inside with Alchemo. The courier tried to follow, but the machine attempted to grind him into paste with its remaining arm. Though the time traveler managed to activate his time stop and move away each time the creature started applying force around him, the robot blocked the tunnel's entrance. Thankfully, Darkling chose that moment to slither through the ceiling's hole, and fell directly on top of the robot. The eldritch horror swallowed the machine with its black ooze, its mere proximity negating the machine's telekinesis like Alphonse Monada's radiation. The Shoggoth dissolved the red elixir inside the vat, absorbing the liquid and the portal into itself. Bon appetit, my dark friend, Ryan said as he fled into the tunnel, leaving his pet Shoggoth to its meal. A minute later, the courier made his way into the bunker's command room, crimson lights and screens flickering above his head. A red force field shielded the central, biomechanical brain, which Alchemo desperately attempted to bypass. Saren, meanwhile, struggled to hit the turrets with shockwaves. "I'll take care of the turrets, help our brainy friend," Ryan told Saren, as he reloaded his coil gun and opened fire at a turret. A projectile went through the machine and caused it to explode. Activating his power, Ryan reached a Gatling turret and leaped at it. Then, he started riding it like a bull, forcefully aiming it at the other weapons in the room. A hail of bullets flew across the room once time resumed, but the distraction allowed Saren to regroup with Alchemo. While Ryan provided suppressing fire, the Chernobyl cosplayer released her gas at the metal pedestal holding the giant brain. Part of it rusted, and caused the force field to short out. Alchemo immediately used the opportunity to climb on the biomechanical construct. Much like Psyshock in the previous loop, the genius intertwined with the giant brain, nailing it with his syringe fingers and connecting to the alien machinery. Blue lightning raced through Alchemo's exposed brain, his nervous system directly interfacing with the base's own. And then, the turrets abruptly stopped firing a single shot. The one that Ryan had seized deactivated, much to his disappointment. He had loved the brief rodeo. "Is it over?" Saren asked, glancing at the turrets as if expecting them to open fire again. Alchemo's answer was lukewarm. "I'm changing the admin privileges and ID credentials, so it registers us as staff." "Well, I can't hear tremors or gunfire," Ryan said, "so I would call this operation a success." They might have lost a few red shirts, but the information gathered on the defenses would serve him well. As if to answer the courier's thoughts, the screens around the mainframe showed videos of the bunker's rooms, from the recreational area to the holographic observatory. Frank had piled up a hill of robots at the center, which somewhat obscured the camera's vision of the room. Other screens showed underground labs, a futuristic armory, and a miniature particle collider. "It's incredible," Alchemo sounded giddier than Ryan had ever heard him. "All the wealth of information within this thing. All the secrets it uncovered. I can't access all the files yet, but I can already see what they contain." "Is there one on psychos?" Saren asked, hopeful. "Yes, and that's not all. How Mecrin enhanced other genomes' powers, how elixirs work. It's all there. All the research, all the secrets." Alchemo looked at Ryan with what could pass for a triumphant pose. "We're going to change the world, meatbag." The new brain copying machine looked exactly like the old one. Ryan held his breath as he stood right next to a sleeping Len, a helmet covering her face and rewriting her memories. The infirmary's lights blinded him, and he could barely hear himself over his accelerating heartbeat. He had trouble breathing, even without his presidential mask. "It's okay, Ryan," T tried to reassure him. I've monitored her life signs. The treatment is working. Will Ma wake up after this? Little Sarah asked Alchemo, as he oversaw the memory transfer. Her plushy companion kept glaring at the genius with crimson eyes, probably remembering their previous interactions. At long last? Yes, she should, Alchemo replied with flat effect, before removing Len's helmet. The transfer is done, and I repaired the damage caused by the machine's overuse. She should recover consciousness soon. It's, Ryan sighed, as it killed him to say it. Thanks. I owed you a favor, did I not? The genius grunted. If anything, I should thank you. Accessing Mecran's database will supplement my own recette. Dad, the doll interrupted her maker, glancing at Sarah and Ryan in short order. Now is not the time. Ugh. I will never understand why a human brain puts so much importance in base feelings. You made a daughter, didn't you? Ryan replied, not in the mood for jokes. You cared too. Alchemo stood still as if he had been slapped, before turning towards the door. Whatever. Doll, come with me. The real work begins now. Take care, Ryan, the doll told the courier, before smiling at Sarah. You're coming with us too. What? The little girl protested. I'm staying. I understand it's important to you, but, T glanced at Ryan. I think he needs a moment alone with her. He's been waiting a very long time. That was one way to put it. Ryan sighed when Sarah squinted at him. Look, your mama and I, we were close. Little Sarah crossed her arms in suspicion. How close? Enough that I thought we might end up making a brat like you one day, Ryan replied bluntly, the young orphan reddening. There, I destroyed your childhood. Now get away before I do the same with your adulthood.
Ew.
Disgusting. Sarah covered her mouth. Did you? Yes, we did. Ryan looked into her sweet, innocent eyes. And we were 16. Sensing his partner's distress, the plushie grabbed Sarah's robe. Let's play outside. I need fresh air, Sarah said, finally letting T and her furred partner push her out of the room. At long last, Ryan was alone with Len. As he watched her chest rise up with her breathing, Ryan was brought back to his childhood, when he waited for Len to wake up so they could play outside. He had been in the same position years ago, looking over her like a big brother. She still loves you. Psyshock's words echoed in the courier's mind, as Len began to stir. Her eyelids threatened to open, and the time traveler felt the tension building up in his fingers. Shorty? Ryan asked, holding her hand. It was so warm to the touch, so fragile. Sleeping Beauty? I'm not the prince you asked for, but it's time to wake up. Her bright blue eyes opened, and Len looked up at his face. For a second, Ryan worried he might see Psyshock's cold, sociopathic gaze, but thankfully not. It wasn't a look of fear, or confusion, or surprise. It was the elusive look he had waited centuries for, but never achieved. A flash of recognition. Riri, Len's bright smile melted Ryan's heart. I remember. Such short words, and yet so meaningful. Riri, it worked. Len rejoiced. The transfer worked. Ryan felt something warm fall down his cheeks. His breath shortened, as he felt a tight pressure build up around his chest. Riri? Len's expression turned from joy to concern. Riri, you're crying? Ryan collapsed to his knees and exploded into tears. He couldn't say a word, let alone move, as the crushing weight of time was suddenly lifted off his shoulders. The centuries of loneliness washed over him like a torrent. The accumulated pain he had buried away, fled, denied, and carried came roaring back to the surface. His brain burned like a blazing fire, and his heart tightened inside his chest. It was a moment of pure joy, but he felt so heavy, so weak, so feeble. He felt like a wandering knight whose bright, shining armor had fallen off his body, revealing the raw sadness underneath. Ryan couldn't even raise his head at the lone witness of his breakdown. He didn't have the strength. He didn't have the strength left. He spent it all in Monaco, in France and Spain, and everywhere else. He exhausted it fighting Adam, fighting Psyshock, fighting the Augusti and Dynamis and his countless foes across centuries. He had wasted it all running forward, back to the past, always searching for the perfect ending. He felt her arms move around his neck, and she filled this dark, cold world with warmth. "It's okay, Ryan." Len hugged Ryan tightly, like she often did during their childhood. His head rested against her shoulder, while she kept whispering words into his ear. I'm here, Ryan. You're not alone. You're not alone. No. Not anymore. 78, Happiness Overdose. For the first time in centuries, Ryan woke up at peace with himself. Certainly, he had had good mornings in the past. Waking up next to Jasmine would remain one of his most cherished memories. But nothing could compare to this beautiful moment. His body was numb from the endorphins, the tension in his muscles had long vanished. He could have stayed in his bed all day, smiling at the ceiling. Ryan Romano was happy. It took a Herculean effort of will to rise up and put on his presidential costume, for he still had work to do. As he dressed, the courier glanced at the hole a robot made in his bowler hat. One loop ago, the cruel sight would have triggered an epic, city-destroying rampage. But not today. Ryan emerged from his room smiling behind his mask, and found Frank keeping watch in front of the doors. The giant immediately welcomed him with a military salute. "Good morning, Mr. President." "Nothing to report." Ryan smiled at the poor, deluded creature, his heart full of warmth and compassion. "Agent Frank," he said while putting a hand on the man's back, though he had to stand on his toes. "You are the greatest hero this nation's ever had. You are everything an American citizen should be." His kind words shook the Titan to the core. Frank would have cried, if he wasn't made of metal. "Thank you, Mr. President. Everything I do is to honor my father. He died from a KFC overdose while hanging Nazis with a lasso. A most American way to die. He would be so proud of you, son." Though Ryan would have to make sure Frank and Len never ended up in the same room. He had the intuition it would backfire. Leaving his favorite guard to his watch, Ryan moved into the recreational area while whistling to himself. He didn't care about the hanged gremlins dangling from the ceiling, or how Rakshasa struggled to clean up a blood puddle on the floor. Everything just felt right. "Oh, you're awake, boss?" Ryan glanced at the speaker, noticing Saren playing pool with Mosquito. The bugman had bandages all over his shoulders and wings. "We've got a problem. The rabbits kept pestering the kids to play outside, and they moved into the junkyard after killing all the gremlins. They flogged me when I tried to stop them," Mosquito complained, pointing at the bandages. "They flogged me." "That too." "It's okay," Ryan replied calmly. "If the plushies didn't destroy the world today, it would be something else, like an asteroid or a plague. No biggie." Hazmat Girl didn't look convinced. "Didn't you stress that your rabbits shouldn't go outside under any circumstance?" "My dear lovely Saren." Ryan put his hands on his VP's shoulders. "Everything is going to be fine. I promise you, darling." "Are you high?" she asked while abandoning her cue, sounding disgusted with her superior. I know we have a juice production facility, but what's the saying? Don't get high on your own product. I know, I ran a drug cartel. Which turned out great. Saren, I have something to say. You're not the best sidekick I had, that would be the panda, but I like you. I like you very much. Saren pushed Ryan back and raised a vibrating fist in his direction. He had opened his heart to her, and that was how she reacted? Okay, what's wrong with you? You're weirder than usual. I feel like being nice today, Ryan said, letting out a sigh of pure bliss. No cruel joke, no sarcasm, no mean remarks. Just pure kindness. Well, get back to normal, you're creeping the shit out of me. I prefer him this way, Mosquito said, immediately trying to exploit the situation. Does that mean we get free juice today, since you're in a good mood? Of course, dear Leech, Ryan said, the bugman loudly rejoicing. Enjoy your day off, my friends. For tomorrow, we'll go to war. Manada's ultimatum expired the day after, and while Ryan had a plan to get rid of him, it would involve a clash with Il Miglior. Perhaps even the carnival, if the two groups already made contact during this loop. Now that the president had secured his White House and electoral base, he would take the city by storm. The elevator to the lower levels opened before Ryan could explain his plan to his trusty minions. Mongrel stepped out first, followed by a blonde woman with bloodshot eyes. She kept her head down and avoided others' gazes, as if afraid of overstepping. It took Ryan a split second to recognize Acid Rain. Her behavior, her posture, the way she moved, everything but her appearance had changed. She gave off an entirely different vibe than the murderous madwoman the courier had grown used to. Her posture screamed meek. Rain? Mosquito asked, probably expecting the violent maniac to flip out and murder them. Rain, is that you? I'm Helen. Even her voice wasn't the same, now that she didn't scream all the time. That's my real name. Helen. Who let you out? Saren asked, pointing her hands at her. The document. He said that the treatment worked. Acid Rain scratched the back of her head as everyone looked at her in shock, before smiling sheepishly at Ryan. Sorry, I tried to kill you before. I wasn't thinking straight. It's okay, I forgive you. Ryan's heart overflowed with compassion, and Saren lowered her gauntlets. I'm just happy you still have all your hair. Chemo worked on me too, Mongrel spoke, his voice surprising in its mundaneness. Saren's head immediately turned in his direction. You can talk?
Yeah.
Though my brain hurts when I speak. Mongrel held his head in his hand. I think my gray matter slowly fills the void left by the tumors. I feel like I'm waking up from a long nightmare, Acid Rain said, smiling at Ryan. Thanks for helping. I'm truly grateful, like you wouldn't believe. But our current treatment won't last forever, from what I gathered, Mongrel complained with a groan. Which sucks. No, it wouldn't. Genome's enhanced metabolisms meant they developed a tolerance to chemical products much quicker than normal humans. Eventually, their mutations would adapt to Alchemo's treatment, and the two psychos would descend back into madness. But that was the worst-case scenario, and Ryan knew he would make it right. We have the tools to figure out a permanent solution, he said, glancing at Mongrel. I have the feeling we'll need your assistance though. Ain't gonna fight you on this, Mongrel said. I don't want to go back to eating rats, ya dig? Never asked for that. You drank, 5 knockoffs, Saren pointed out, unsympathetic to his plight. You were already barely better than a dog when Adam found you scavenging trash. Mongrel shuddered. I found a white elixir while looting old Rome's ruins, but it didn't do anything. I read white genomes affected other genomes, but I couldn't get my power to work. So I figured, hey, there's gotta be faulty elixirs lying around, and I drew the short end of the stick. I already planned on buying a knockoff before I found my original, so... Ryan guessed how it went, a shiver down his spine. You drank a knockoff since you believed yourself powerless, and you turned into a psycho. Mongrel's ability allowed him to stockpile more than one elixir. By itself, it did nothing. Much like how Casper the Ghost only transformed post-mortem, some powers needed very specific circumstances to activate, misleading their users.
Yeah.
Mongrel confirmed with a nod. I swear, if you find a cure, I'm never touching an elixir for the rest of my life. Years as a maddened animal scared me straight. Just to be sure, you aren't going to stab us in the back either? Mosquito asked Acid Rain. You gutted our previous teleporter in a fit of rage. No, no. The young woman shook her head, her eyes betraying her horror. That wasn't me. I won't hurt anyone, I swear. She sounded sincere, so Ryan gave her the benefit of the doubt. Something has been bugging me, the courier said, seizing the opportunity to interrogate her. In your insane state, you kept rambling about how I barred the gates, and that something called the Ultimate One wanted you to win. Helen crossed her arms, uncomfortable at reliving her days as a madwoman. Well, I don't remember everything. It's all a haze. But... I think it's because of the portal inside you. The portal? Ryan frowned behind his mask.
Yeah.
Acid Rain searched for the right words. When I switch with my raindrops it's not instantaneous. It looks like it from the outside, but from my point of view, everything goes purple, and I move from one spot to another through a corridor. You enter the purple world when you teleport, using it as a shortcut through space. It explained why their powers could sense the other activating. They both shared a strong connection with the dimension fueling them. When I'm in this place, I see a weird pyramid thing above us, watching. Helen took a deep breath. I hear voices too. I'm not sure if it's talking to me, or something else, but I hear people speaking. When I look at you in this state, I can see a pathway I can't access. A pathway that you close. If that makes sense. I see. Ryan crossed his arms. Thing is, I have been able to open a gate to the purple world in the past, but only with my power boosted. You could do that? Acid Rain's head perked up in hope. You could go back in time with that place. I know you could. It's all of space and time, it all goes back to it. Saren gave Ryan a knowing look, and though he beamed with happiness, he was careful enough not to reveal the truth. Especially not now, when things were finally looking bright. I've lost my family because of a mistake, Helen said, joining her fingers and looking down. That's why I looked for a violet elixir. I could already summon the rain, but... You drank a violet elixir, in spite of the risks? Ryan asked. Acid Rain shook her head, her face turning ghastly, her fingers shaking. I found one, but... I thought I could give it to a friend. That maybe they would luck out. But Adam caught me and he took the violet elixir, and said. Her stare reminded him of a traumatized victim having a PTSD episode. He said that if I really wanted to go back, I should do it myself. So he opened the bottle and her voice died down her throat, her breathing shortening. And Ryan shivered as he listened to her tale, and suddenly realized that Hannafat Lecter's obsession with force-feeding him an elixir wasn't a one-time impulse. It was a habit. That murderous bastard shattered people into broken shells of their former selves, until they had no other option but to follow him. I doubt we can help your family, Helen, Ryan apologized, crushing her hopes. Even if he managed to access the purple world, according to Darkling, the ultimate one would preserve causality and avoid time paradoxes. But we're going to help you, at least. I swear it. Okay. The way she said it made Ryan feel sorry for Acid Rain, of all people. She gathered her breath, and managed to calm herself. Okay. Maybe you could ask the Augusti? Mosquito suggested. Did he rediscover an ember of humanity? I heard Mercury could raise the dead, and we made peace with them. He raises them as mindless zombies, you stupid jackass, Saren said, before returning to the pool game. She wasn't one for emotional moments. Anyone else wanna play? I'm on a roll right now. Sure, Mongrel said, before looking at the dead gremlins dangling from the ceiling. Also, why are there dead hanged animals above the table? There are lucky charms, Saren said, as she sent an 8-ball rolling into a hole. Toasty chose that moment to roll into the room, avoiding a blood puddle and immediately rushing at Acid Rain's feet. Hey, Blondie, the toaster greeted Helen, as it put on the charm. Do you want me to toast your bread? The poor woman looked at the toaster in absolute confusion, and then at Ryan. Is this a prank? She asked. If you don't like your bread raw, I've got butter, Toasty said seductively. His game was atrocious, but then again, he was a toaster. Sweet, soft butter. How can you get butter when you don't have arms? Ryan pointed out the obvious. Hey, you've got enough chicks vying for you already, leave some for us, Toasty replied. When are you putting me inside that big hot mech in the garage? Then, I'll show you arms. Tomorrow, my friend. Tomorrow. Wyvern had destroyed robots and mechs before. But she had never fought a toaster. After briefing his mooks on his devilish plan, Ryan moved to the lower levels. Len had set up a modest genius workshop in one of the underground chambers close to the holographic dome. Ryan had disabled the cameras and microphones for privacy, which Alchemo took as a sign he did dirty things with Len behind doors. If the courier could trust the screens on the walls and the information banks they showed, the room used to be an archive of some sort. A holographic projector at the chamber's center showed a map of planet Earth, with half a dozen glowing red points around Eurasia. Perhaps they indicated Mekran's remaining facilities. Ryan would have to track them down after settling things in New Rome. Hi, Shorty, he told Len, upon finding her working on the brain copying machine. She had repurposed a desk into an improvised workbench. You look good. He had grown used to seeing dark circles around Len's eyes, but not today. She looked as well rested as Ryan himself, and her cheeks had regained some color. Hi, Riri, she said with a warm, kind smile. Yes, I feel good. Alchemo gave me pills, and they work much better than my previous antidepressants. I can think clearly even when I'm not using my power. Though Ryan still distrusted Alchemo, he had to admit the genius could do a great deal of good when he wanted to. If the courier learned how to reproduce his miracle drugs, he could provide Len with treatment across loops. In time, she might regain the same vivid, innocent energy of her teenage years. So any progress on the machine? Ryan asked, looking at this device with reverence. It had saved him from centuries of loneliness. Now we proved it works and Psyshock won't follow us again, we can finally make long-term plans for the future. Especially since this loop would probably end with another firefight. I still can't believe we just time-traveled, Len admitted. When I looked at Sarah, and how she had never seen my sanctuary, I understood how you felt. People forgetting you over and over again, it must be maddening. That was before, Ryan said, as he sat on the workbench. Now we can bring more people into the loop. I have an arrogant young disciple I would love for you to meet. There's a problem, Riri, Len said, biting her lower lip. The machine can only send one brain map back in time at once. Maybe I can improve it and raise that number, but for now, we're limited to one person. You then, Ryan said, quickly understanding the method's limits. And we'll need to rebuild the machine and send you back each time in an unbroken chain. If it breaks once, you'll forget everything. Unless we have a place where we can store the memories, Len confirmed with a nod. We'll need Livia, Ryan said. The courier intended to talk to her so she could assist with the Psycho Cure project, so he would kill two birds with one stone. I thought you didn't trust her. She followed through with her end of the bargain. Len took a deep breath. I mean, she could have told her father to storm this place, but she didn't. Maybe I misjudged her. I don't want her to see the machine's blueprints, but we could cooperate. Do you have the resources to recreate the brain scanner at your base, Shorty? Len's strained face told him otherwise. Since Psyshock corrupted the prototype, we'll need to create a new one from scratch. No, I'm sorry. We'll need better tech than I have. Vulcans, or this bunkers. Unfortunately, the courier couldn't conquer the bunker without help for now. After fighting the defenses, Ryan realized it would take an ungodly number of loops to take it over solo. He couldn't take it without casualties either, at least not until he perfected the process through constant repetitions. He could convince Vulcan or Dynamis to provide him with tech under the right circumstances, but Livia looked like the best option. If they could work out a deal, the Augusti princess could provide an enormous amount of resources and serve as a backup. I'll ask Livia. What next afterward? Len asked. Even if some of them help this time around, we're surrounded by psychos. Mosquito and Mongrel, they tried to abduct the children one loop ago. I wouldn't worry about the children. Considering they're protectors, I worry more about running out of mooks. I'm serious, Riri. It's hard to pretend nothing happened. Every time I see the Metagang's members, I'm tempted to shoot them. I was too, Ryan admitted, but I've come to realize that while there are monsters in their midst, some of them are victims of circumstances. I can't help but wonder what they will do with their lives, if we can cure them of their madness and addiction. They'll just fall back into their old habits, Len said cynically. Ryan wasn't so sure. Though it might be his inner optimist talking, he wanted to believe people like Mongrel or Acid Rain could turn their life around. He had the intuition Saren wouldn't start any trouble either, if she recovered a body of flesh and blood. His perfect run demanded he save those who deserved it. In any case, we'll focus on mastering this bunker's technology. Darkling kept pestering Alchemo about the portal, but the genius still struggled to overcome Mekran's firewalls. While the bunker's security systems didn't attack on sight anymore, the key, critical areas remained out of reach for now. And afterward, we'll deal with Dynamis. Len nodded, her face betraying a hint of anxiousness. We're raiding Lab 66 this loop? Yes. I already set things in motion to prepare the terrain. Whatever may wait for them inside Dynamis' fortress, they would soon learn it. Len, there's something I wish to talk about. She looked away. What Psyshock saw in my mind, isn't it? Yes. Len. Ryan gathered his breath. I love you. There, he said it. I've loved many people. So many, you can't count them all. I've loved T and Jasmine and I admit I have a huge crush on Wardrobe. God damn it, why was she already taken? But out of all these relationships, ours always had a special place in my heart. I hoped we could settle down somewhere. Build a house. Make children. You know, the old dream. Now that you can remember, I have to know if you feel the same. He had waited so long to get it off his chest. Len's arms remained crossed, and tightened further. She kept looking away from him, avoiding his gaze. Perhaps she wanted to spare him the sadness in her own eyes, or her emotions overwhelmed her. Len struggled to find her words, and Ryan patiently waited for her to do so. I guess after all we went through together, it can't ever go away. But. Such a small word, and yet one that crushed so many dreams. But so much happened, Ryan, she said with a deep, sad sigh. So much. I wish we could go back to simpler times, but we can't, even with your power. You're my best friend, Riri, and I don't want you to go away. But I don't feel I'm ready for us to become more than that. Perhaps never. Ryan listened in silence, having expected something like this. Len finally looked into his eyes, and he could see she was terrified of his reaction. I'm sorry, Riri. No, it's okay, Ryan reassured her with dignity, and he meant it. I had centuries to process these feelings and prepare myself. I understand, Shorty. The courier didn't like it, but he understood. He had clung to an idea of the past for so long, he couldn't keep looking back. Things happened. Things changed. He had to accept them, and move on. Len still had her own issues, and couldn't give him the emotional intimacy he yearned for. She already wanted him in her life against all odds, and he couldn't feel entitled to more. I will give you your space, he said. Frankly, I'm just happy we can become friends again, and stay that way. All Ryan ever asked for, was for someone to remember him. He couldn't ask for more of Len, now that she fulfilled his dearest wish. Perhaps I was wrong. I don't think we're best friends. It seems not strong enough a term. Len gave him a bright, warm smile. We're family, Riri. Yes, they were family. Perhaps not the one Ryan had hoped for, but a family all the same. And he was fine with it. 79, past fragment.
Goodbye.
Monaco. April 2017, France, village of La Turbie. It was a sunny day in Monaco. Flowers were blooming, birds were singing, and Simon rolled a boulder in hell. How many times had Ryan looked at Monaco from this promontory? He had spent 1 year's worth of loops trying to figure out this place's rules, and today would just be another attempt. It took him a while, but he had found an old, pre-war UAV drone in an abandoned military base near Istras, a stealth, tactical reconnaissance device which Dassault built for the French Air Force. Ryan had modified it into a purple-painted quadcopter, and outfitted it with a submachine gun. Controlling the device with a remote control, the courier received a constant video feed as he directed the drone towards Monaco. His quadcopter flew through empty streets, and broke through windows to enter deserted houses. All buildings looked the same from the inside. The whole city was a prop. At least Ryan now confirmed the teleportation effect didn't apply to machines, once the drone passed the 2-hour time limit. The casino's propaganda about fighting back Mechren was just as baseless as its tales of Andorran invasions. As the sun fell behind the horizon, Ryan directed the drone to the Monte Carlo casino. The quadcopter moved inside after blasting the doors with the submachine gun, and no clown came to stop it. The real Monte Carlo casino looked similar to the hellish dimension Ryan had spent a lifetime trapped inside, but it was neither infinite nor abnormal. The rooms were in their place, and the drone couldn't find anyone within its walls. When the drone prepared to leave the casino to resupply, the doors had repaired themselves. Ryan had the machine blast them again, fly through, and then turn around again. The doors had recovered the second they had been left out of sight. Well, time to bring out the big guns then. Ryan spent 3 months' worth of loops mapping out the casino and its surroundings with the drone, down to the sewers. In the end, he had to face the obvious. He couldn't find any entrance into the pocket dimension. An invitation-only kind of place, eh? Ryan said, as he put on sunglasses. Having taken offense at the situation, he had strapped a small nuke to his drone, thanked the French for their pre-war nuclear arsenal. You don't say no to me. Sitting on a long chair on the coast of Cap Ferrat, almost 15 kilometers from Monaco, Ryan directed the drone to the Monte Carlo with his remote control. He had to repurpose a local radio station to control his toy from so far away, but his work would pay dividends. After the shrimp, the courier said while pressing the big red button, the mushrooms. The video feed stopped functioning, as a bright sphere of light consumed Monaco. Everything within Ryan's line of sight caught fire, from forests to the ruins of French ports along the Mediterranean coast. Colossal waves rose around the detonation point, and spread for miles. The ground trembled as far as Cap Ferrat, a massive fiery mushroom rising up in the skies. Ryan watched the cursed microstate go down in flames with a deep sense of satisfaction, at least, until the shockwave reached him and a powerful gust tossed his sunglasses off his face. Independence for Andorra, the courier shouted in the microstate's direction, as the mushroom cloud slowly died out. A few hours later, Ryan strode through the burning ruins of Monaco in a reinforced hazmat suit, braving the firestorms, the ashes, and the irradiated dust falling from the skies. Every building had collapsed from the blast, and the roads were blocked by debris. The courier almost considered this experience a hiking trip. I will be the very best, Ryan hummed to himself, as he reached the blast's epicenter. Of the Monte Carlo casino, only a crater remained. Whatever force allowed the place to rebuild itself, it couldn't undo such devastation. Like no one ever was. A flash of yellow and violet swallowed him whole, followed by the sight of a familiar marble hallway. Damn it! When he woke up again on the Tête de Chien promontory on April 1st, Ryan let out a scream of frustration. Even nuking the whole place couldn't dispel the effect. He should have expected something like this. While the real Monte Carlo served as the phenomenon's anchor on Earth, the true maze existed in a separate reality. As far as Ryan could tell, the mysterious controller, Jean Stephanie, lived inside his pocket dimension. Or most probably, he had become the maze. Ryan sighed, sat on the promontory's edge, and considered what he had learned over his various experiments. The effect activated whenever someone crossed into Monaco's boundaries, as described by international law. This included the airspace, but not the territorial waters. Ryan assumed it had something to do with the old Franco-Monegasque treaties, with Jean Stephanie's power unable to recognize the waters as fully Monaco's. A victim was teleported inside the maze if they approached the Monte Carlo, or stayed more than 2 hours inside the city's limits. If they had crossed the frontier and left, they would be trapped the moment they fell asleep. It didn't matter if they had stayed in Monaco for less than a minute, or spent 3 days fleeing across Europe before falling asleep from exhaustion. Ryan had checked both possibilities, to his dismay. Once you entered Monaco, it never let you go. Ever. The effect also applied to animals, except unlike humans, they were immediately teleported to the maze's kitchens instead of the relatively safe marble hallway. Ryan had sent countless puppies to their death over the course of his research, and didn't regret any of it. He was, after all, a cat person. At one point, he had even strapped the same nuke to a lamb, wiring it to detonate inside the pocket dimension. Since the sacrificial animal had teleported inside the kitchen, the resulting explosion spared Sweets Town and blasted a large part of the maze to Kingdom Come. Ryan had personally entered the pocket dimension afterward to observe the results. The damage lasted for 24 hours, until new rooms replaced the destroyed ones. Since the teleportation always involved a flash of violet and yellow light, Ryan suspected the controller was a psycho associated with these colors. It would explain the space-time anomaly and all the weird, conceptual rules. This meant only a powerful yellow or violet could permanently destroy the maze, if at all. So far, Ryan hadn't located anyone capable of such a feat. Do I truly need to destroy this place though? Ryan pondered out loud, as he observed Monaco from afar. The city was mocking him with its very existence. I mean, it's static and doesn't spread. A fence would keep it contained, at least until I find a way to terminate it. His perfect run demanded that he free the people trapped inside Monaco, first and foremost. According to his research, he could remain outside Monaco until April 28th, after which Martine would die in a shrimp supply run gone wrong. The lights would die out, and the clowns would tear her apart before Simon could rescue her. Ryan had to find an exit within that time span, but where? This place didn't have a door in or out, and nobody could interact with the outside world once trapped inside. No one but Ryan himself. I am an exit, the courier realized. From what he understood of his power, the courier existed in two places at once, some kind of dimension beyond space and time, and Earth. The connection remained even within Monaco, though whatever power ruled the maze prevented his two selves from fusing. It didn't cancel the convergence entirely, it simply pushed back. Thus, while the pocket dimension could act as a barrier between its prisoners and the universe outside, it wasn't an inviolate frontier. If Ryan could push the underlying principle of his power to the limit, maybe he could overcome it. An idea crossed his mind. 5 years. It took Ryan 5 years' worth of loops to master particle physics, find a genius capable of helping him with his problem, and raid enough laboratories to gather the equipment he needed. He had to travel all the way to Switzerland and back, to scavenge parts of CERN's unfinished Hadron Collider. And now, on this sunny day of April 27th, Ryan stood atop the promontory dressed for war. He had decided to wear something nice for this historical day. A purple shirt and blue pants, black gloves, and boots, and most importantly, a classic trench coat. He kept an MP3 device around his belt, alongside a Japanese katana he borrowed from a Swiss raider. Since the clowns shrugged off most firearms, he would make sushi out of them. Most importantly, the courier had brought with him two cube-shaped devices 40 centimeters in diameter. These steel-plated machines each had a hand-sized hole on one side, the mouth of a particle collider, and a small control panel on the other. The resonators. These nuclear-powered devices, through a science Ryan himself barely understood, should create a convergence similar to the courier's own power. Particles would travel from one cube to the other, forcing a path through dimensions. Maybe he could use that technology to build an interdimensional radio one day. That would be funny. Leaving one on the Tête de Chien promontory and wiring it to activate within 2 hours, Ryan put the other in a travel bag and drove down towards Monaco with his trusty motorcycle. He crossed the microstate's official frontier, ignoring the anti-Andorran propaganda signs on his way to Monte Carlo. Ryan stopped in front of the casino, stepped away from his vehicle, and moved towards the doors with confidence. The plaza vanished in a flash of yellow and violet light. Ryan had lost count of how many times he had lived through this moment, but hopefully, this would be the last. He took a deep breath, basking in the conditioned air flowing through this dreadful prison, and moved to tear it apart. "Hello, dear guest," a gold-faced clown immediately welcomed the intruder, as he walked out of the marble hallway and into the main lobby. "Welcome to Monaco. The greatest sea." Ryan casually beheaded him with his katana, the creature's warm blood spraying the carpet. The courier didn't even wait for the head to hit the floor, as he moved towards the elevator. Half a dozen clowns emerged from behind the lobby's marble pillars, carrying silver plates, refreshments, and appetizers. "Dear guest, "We must warn you that violence is forbidden during opening hours," one of them addressed Ryan with an obsequious tone. "If you insist on misbehaving, we will have to show you the door." The courier called the elevator and hit the 4th floor button. "Pick the place," Ryan told the clowns as the doors closed behind him. "It's where you will die." The monsters kept grinning, but behind the empty smiles, there were knives. A few minutes later, Ryan had reached Sweets Town. The sight of the long hallway leading into the hotel suites almost made Ryan feel nostalgic. Almost. He walked towards room 44 and knocked on the metal door. "Simon," he shouted, "Simon. I have a hamburger, and I'm not afraid to use it." The door immediately opened, and a shotgun raised at Ryan's face. Simon was outfitted for combat, his leather armor still white with the alien blood of murdered clowns. "Who the hell are you?" "Français parle cinq vers," Ryan replied in French. "Le chlou est dans le garage." Simon froze for a split second, before asking with skepticism, "Il n'est pas couru assez vite?" "Jelai les en Alsace," Ryan replied. The sheriff lowered his weapon, astonished. "How do you know that password, Rydell?" "You told me," the courier almost blurted out. "A former friend of yours in the French Foreign Legion," Ryan lied for simplicity's sake. "I came to save you. According to my timing, everyone should be in their respective rooms right now." "How do you know that? Is this a commando operation? I thought the French government collapsed." "That's what we make them think," Ryan whispered ominously before moving inside the suite. Simon was too confused to protest, as the courier quickly moved in front of his tunnel. Ryan opened his bag, brought out the resonator, and placed it in front of the hole Simon had spent his life digging. Technically, the device would have worked anywhere inside the pocket dimension, but the courier thought this particular location was poetically appropriate. "You have a way out?" Simon asked with a tone Ryan never heard him use before. The emotion in the old man's voice was one he had given up on a long time ago. "Hope." And as Ryan typed on the resonator's control panel and activated the device, he prayed not to disappoint it. Light built up inside the cube's hole, projecting a stream of light into the tunnel. Space itself warped around this energy stream, warping Simon's hole into a shining hallway. Tension rose in the air, as if an evil force suddenly took notice of these events. Ryan took this as a good sign. After pulsating and twisting for half a minute, the hallway of light seemed to stabilize around the particle stream. Though he couldn't see anything beyond the threshold, the courier sensed a faint, pleasant gust brush against his face. "Wind. Is that?" Simon removed his helmet, unable to trust his own senses. His eyes had widened, and tears of relief formed at the edge of them. "Fresh air?" Ryan activated his power, an opposing force pushing back. And yet Monaco turned purple. The resonators had breached the pocket dimension. "Who are you?" Simon asked when time resumed, unable to take his eyes off the portal. "Who are you?" "Quick, Ryan, think of a clever superhero name." "I'm Quick Save," Ryan declared confidently. "The boulder who rolls." Damn, that sounded way better in his mind. "Dear guests." A horribly familiar voice echoed through the floor's loudspeakers, a promise of deadly retaliation. "We regretfully inform you that due to the current Andorran invasion threatening our border, the Monte Carlo will permanently close until further notice." Far from professional, the voice sounded downright passive-aggressive this time around. "Please exit the suites, so our beloved staff can help you check out." Click. The sound of countless doors opening caused Ryan's heart to skip a beat as he rushed outside Simon's home. All the suites' doors had snapped open, people looking through their thresholds in confusion. Ryan recognized so many faces, from Martine to Jean and Jeff and Sally. The illusion of safety had been stripped away from them, and the lights started going out. Monaco wouldn't let them escape without a fight. Ryan looked for what remained inside his bag, a metal mask with 2 rounded glasses for eyes, custom-made for the occasion. "Game on, Pogo," the courier said, as he put on the mask and activated the night vision mode. "Simon, evacuate everyone through the portal. I'll take care of the comedy rejects downstairs." Alone, the gunman protested, clocking his shotgun. "You're mad, I'm coming with you." "No, Simon," Ryan said, as he moved towards the elevator with only his katana for a weapon. He would have blown it up if he didn't know the place could repair itself. "You can't fathom how long I've rehearsed this one-man show." As the elevator climbed down the floors towards the final showdown, the courier activated his MP3 and put on a cheerful song. "Nobody But Me," Ryan hummed to himself, as the elevator's doors opened. He disliked that show, but it had an awesome intro. The courier entered the lobby, and faced an army of clowns. Hundreds of them had crawled out of the shadows, and into the casino's main lobby, all carrying napkins around their neck. Ryan could scarcely see the giant roulette in the middle of the room, and the ceiling's candelabras had all been extinguished. The Monte Carlo staff had grabbed all the weapons they could find. Silver cutlery, golf clubs, sushi knives, and even a few nightsticks. Their metallic masks kept smiling, though their grins had turned downright vicious. And the only person standing between them and Sweetstown was one handsome courier. "Monaco," Ryan raised his katana, and uttered his war cry. "Monaco isn't a real country." The smiling horde charged at him like a screaming chorus. What followed was a whirlwind of blood and fury, as Ryan cut through the creatures like butter. His sword's edge disemboweled 5 clowns in a single strike, thick white blood flowing from their wounds like a wine waterfall. 2 monsters attempted to shank him, one with a knife, the other with a fork. He threw one into the other, impaling the 2 in a single strike and causing them to drop their weapons. When a clown attempted to bypass him and reach the elevator, Ryan grabbed the knife and threw it behind him. The projectile hit the back of his target's head, killing him instantly. "The armies of Andorra will fail," a frenzied voice shouted through the loudspeakers, as a berserk Ryan killed clowns left and right. "Pledge your life to Monaco. Glory to Jean Stephanie. The Monte Carlo shall stand forever. Where are my winnings?" Ryan snarled as he smashed a clown's head against the floor, his face smearing the giant roulette below their feet. "What do I win?" He froze time in quick succession to dodge 2 knife strikes, only to notice something coming from his left when the clock resumed tickling. One platinum-faced clown had thrown a silver plate at the courier like a frisbee, with enough force to turn it into a deadly weapon. Ryan barely had the time to blink, before the projectile hit his neck and sliced it in half. Time and again. The second time around, Ryan dodged the plate, grabbed it in midair, and threw it back at the sender. The improvised frisbee snapped the monster's skull open. Ryan parried a golf club's swing, then another swing. His foe's short game was good, but the courier cut his hands off with a stroke of his own. He leaped around, dodging strikes and swings, countering, killing, swirling. His sword was one with his body, his focus unparalleled. 3 clowns tackled him by surprise and threw him to the ground, as a 4th crushed his head with a giant token. 3 clowns fell with one swing, and the 4th's legs were sliced clean. His own token crushed him, and Ryan stomped on the body. Dozens he had slain, and more followed. A lifetime of suffering he avenged. Backs were smashed against pillars, shrimps force-fed down a throat. Wine bottles flew, and plates shattered. His fury couldn't be quenched. The bloody floor turned slippery, and yet Ryan kept going with a grin. Each life he took was a pleasure greater than sex. Each strike carried the weight of a century of pain, the exaltation of a performance rehearsed for years. The hyenas that hounded him for decades fell like flies before his blade, and he couldn't put into words how amazing it felt. He killed many clowns, but more took their place. An endless tide of death, but he would cut them down all the same. Tonight, we have the pleasure of introducing veteran entertainers from the International Circus Festival of Monte Carlo. The loudspeaker's voice said with fear, as its mooks perished. Everyone, please applaud the acrobats. For shadows leaped amidst the carnage, clown faces atop black bodysuits. They wielded swords, and into the fray, they charged. They threw shurikens at Ryan's face, and with his blade he parried them. Swords clashed, and on one he was impaled. A sword swing he dodged, and a ninja he slew. Time froze and began again. He raged and cursed as he parried, dodged, and struggled. They pushed him back against the wall. And his blood they shed. And Ryan tried again. Again, and again. And again. Their blades clashed in a storm of steel, but Ryan was pushing them back, and the clowns no longer grinned. Each run made him a little faster, a little deadlier. Each sneak attack he dodged, each strike he countered. Each opportunity he exploited. None could harm him, but every one of his strikes landed a kill. No breath was wasted, no step was for nothing. He stole a second sword, for double the pain. It's impossible, nobody ever expects the clown ninjas. The loudspeaker's voice screamed in rage, and the courier laughed. More mini-bosses came, firecrackers and magicians, strongmen and ringmasters. All of them Ryan faced, and none lived to tell the tale. All his foes fell, until only one remained. His rounded hat Ryan coveted, and he would not be denied. Against the statue of Jean Stephanie the clown was pushed, and under which he was crushed. The massacre finished, the song ended. Ryan gathered his breath, a hill of corpses before him, and frightened clowns behind. Well. Ryan looked over his shoulder at his future victims, drenched in white blood. None of it was his own. Up for more? The clowns had stopped smiling, and ran away screaming. With a blissful smile, Ryan dropped his swords, grabbed his last victim's rounded hat, and put it on his head over his mask. What a good souvenir it would make! The courier returned to Sweets Town, finding it almost empty. Only Simon remained, keeping watch over the portal with his shotgun raised. You could have left some for me, he said while glancing at the courier's bloodied clothes. I was about to go downstairs and help. You know that the whole point of last stands is that you're not expected to survive them? Ryan asked rhetorically. Why didn't you leave already? You asked me to evacuate everyone, the man replied, you're part of everyone. So nice. Ryan activated a code on the resonator's control panel, triggering the self-destruct sequence to make sure the clowns wouldn't follow them outside. Explosion in 5 minutes, a digital voice came out of the device. How big? Simon asked, quickly searching below his bar counter for his last belongings. Nuclear, Ryan replied, as he grabbed his travel bag. As expected, Simon brought a pile of books as souvenirs, with a familiar one at the top. The Myth of Sisyphus? How did you know? The old sheriff asked, suspicious. Ryan chuckled, as they walked into the light. Intuition. Farewell, Monaco. You won't be missed. Are you sure you don't want to stay? At the wheel of an old Renault Megane 2, Ryan replied with a negative. There's someone I've got to find, he told Martine and Simon, as the two stood outside his window. No offense, but that side quest lasted long enough already. I'm not familiar with the term, Martine said, while Simon shrugged. We owe you our lives. Whoever you are, you'll always be welcome among us. Whoever you are. Ryan glanced through his car's window, and at the 40 men and women he just saved today. The group had established a makeshift camp atop the Tet de Chien promontory, celebrating their freedom around a campfire. Monaco remained in the distance, a prison without captives. It had been 3 days since the jailbreak, and nobody had been yanked back to the pocket dimension, even when they slept. Either the forceful escape had broken the pocket dimension's power over its captives, or they would have to cross its frontier again like anyone else. No one was stupid enough to go back there. From his point of view, he had lived with these people for over a century. He had learned all of their secrets, helped them through the darkest times, seen them react to all possible circumstances. He knew Simon's real name, the one he abandoned when he joined the French Foreign Legion. He knew what happened to his sons, the horrible past he tried to leave behind, and even the books he wanted to read, but never got around to. He knew Martine's hometown, the names she wanted to give her future children, her favorite movie, the one she loathed most, that she had always wanted to become a nurse but never could. He knew her deepest fears and greatest triumphs. And they had just learned his name. He knew these people better than they knew themselves, but he remained a stranger to them. "Maybe we'll keep in touch," Ryan said, though he didn't really believe it. "You know how to contact me. If you need a favor, you just have to call." The blonde woman smiled warmly at him, though there was a sadness to her gaze. She knew they were unlikely to meet again. Simon watched as Martine rejoined the other survivors, remaining with Ryan a little longer. "Have we met before?" he asked Ryan. "I can tell you know me, but I don't remember you. Without false modesty, I'm unforgettable."
Yeah.
"You sure know how to make an introduction, freeing me from 12 years of captivity. Now, what's your secret? Everything that happened so far seems a bit too convenient." "I'm immortal," Ryan confessed with a sigh, "but don't tell anyone." Simon examined the time traveler for a moment, before offering him an old, dusty book. "Here. Take this." Ryan expected a copy of the Myth of Sisyphus, but it was another book entirely. "Thus Spoke Zarathustra, a book for all and none." The courier read the cover's title. "By Friedrich Nietzsche. There's a concept inside, the eternal recurrence, that I think you'll like." Ryan looked into the older man's wise, knowing gaze. "Thanks," the courier said, before putting the book at the car's back. "What will you do now?" "Martine and the others will probably move west towards greener pastures, but I'll stay here. My life is almost over, so I figure, someone has to watch over this place. Put fences all around this giant death trap, and make sure nobody wanders inside. Nobody ain't goin' past me, I can tell you. I've got experience with border duties." Ryan didn't doubt that. "Well, if anybody wanders where they shouldn't, give me a call." "Sure, Petit Riddle," Simon said, before patting the courier's shoulder. "Don't break your back climbing the hill." Ryan looked at Simon's book, and then at its previous owner as he joined the Monaco survivors. The courier watched the bashful smiles on their face, the happy glances they sent one another. They had gone through hell, and made it out. They would rebuild their lives, and begin again. This was the perfect ending, for everyone. Everyone but Ryan. The courier froze time, and let it last more than 10 seconds. 2 periods converged, a flash of violet light swallowing the courier whole. He lived through everything in the span of a second. This cursed century spent trapped in Monaco, and the shorter stays afterward. His years of research, all the pain, all the joy, and all the sorrow. All these moments that could have been, but that only Ryan remembered. He took all his memories into himself, and they would live on through him. Time resumed abruptly, the past set in stone, and the save point moved into the present. His perfect run complete, Ryan drove into the sunset and didn't look back.